Boker Tov. Today's daf is daf Mem Gimel in Shavuos. As we pray for Achenu Kol Beis Yisrael and Asurim Basar V'Shivya, may all our planes come home safely. May we be safe and sound. And as the pasuk says in this week's parsha, Kisavol Mulchama Ba'artzachem Al Asaras V'Arachem. So let's hope that that's all for good news. Good news. All right, so we're at the two dots on Daf Mem Gimel Manaf, where we left off yesterday. We had a machlokus in the Mishnah. We said, of course, everybody agrees that you don't swear on karka, no shvuos on karka. What about if it's karka that has peiros on it? He gives an example. Rav Meir said it's karka, but it's not really karka. If, let's say, for example, if a man claims I lent you 10 trees full of fruits, and the other guy says, no, it was only 5. Or Meir says, you're chayiv shvua. The Rabbanan say, no, it's a karka. Ein yishmor al karka. What's the machlokas here? Rav Meir says to the Gemara, Rav Meir savar kol mechobel karka einu karka. Right? Only karka itself, only land, literally land, the dirt, the earth, that you don't swear on. But if it's attached to the ground, you don't. So if that's the case, out of mifli betunos, why talk about trees that are laden with fruit? Lifli besrukos, talk about fruitless trees. And say the same thing there. Those are attached to the ground, but they're not the ground itself. They're attached to the ground. Elam Ravasi, or Rav Yasser rather. Here the machlokas is this. The truth is, Rav Meir also agrees that trees are considered karka if they're attached to the ground. Here we're talking about trees which are ripe and about to be picked, about to be harvested. Rav Meir says it's considered as if they're picked. In other words, the fruits, the trees laden with fruit, the fruit are considered already metalchlin, as if they've already been picked. They're not attached to the ground. For Rabbanan Savi Lo K'B'Suras Tamim, the Rabbanan hold that it's not as if it hasn't been harvested yet, and it's still karka, and therefore there's no shvua. Then the Mishnah went on to say, you only swear on something which there is a claim and a counterclaim, something which could be measured, weighed, or counted. If it can't be, if it's just a general idea, the general thing, as we'll see, then that wouldn't be, then there's no shvus madav mixas. And the Mishnah gave an example. The Mishnah said, Ketzad, bayis mole, I gave you a full house full of, or let's say a warehouse full of fruits, or I gave you a purse full of money. And the other guy says, look, whatever you gave me, whatever you left, this is what's left here. Whatever's here, whatever you put down here, take whatever's left. I don't know how much is there. Putter, that's not a moda b'mikdas. Moda b'mikdas is to be a specific amount, or an amount that could be counted. I gave you something, you could count the whole thing, and I'm returning to you less, or I moded to part of it, not moded to the other part. I claim I gave you back some of it. So the Mishnah went on to say, if he said specifically the warehouse was full until the beam or until the window, one guy said to the window, one guy said to the window, then you're chayiv, because that's something that could be counted. How much is there? I gave you a measure, it's up to the beam. Okay, you can count it and see which is there. And the other guy said, no, you only gave me up to the window, or I only owe you up to the window, I gave you back the rest. So there's a specific amount there. That's the machlokas here. So the Gemara now says like this: Amar Abai, lo shanel d'amar le'bai stam. Only if he said a house or a building that was full, right? Avalomelo bayis zeh. But if he said this house mole, bayis zeh mole, that could be counted. Yediyah tanasa. That claim can be known. You can count it up. Amalei Rav, if that's the case, if it makes a difference if he said this house or a house, what's the difference? Why did he talk about the example that that the Mishnah said, where it was specific, was ad haziz. I said I gave you up to the ziz, up to that beam, from the floor to the beam, you can measure that. The other guy says, no, only up to the window, right? That's how much you gave me, or that's how much I returned, that's how much I owe you. Chayev, you're chayev. Why talk about that case? Liflag v'lisn b'day. Make a nafkamina by a house itself. Madvar more, but by a smole. If I just said a house, a storehouse or a warehouse full, I claimed, and you say no, I owe you less. You owe me less because, excuse me, I owe you less because some of it was returned, or you never gave me that much. I mowed it to some, I mowed it to the other. It could be very simple. You say you gave me a full warehouse. I say you gave me, a partial warehouse. Why talk about that? Make an afkamina by bias said. Be specific. Medmor more bias mole stam. I'm a bias ze mole, but this particular house, which is full, that can be counted. You should be chayiv there too. Elo Marava, it makes a difference. It's got to be something which can be counted. You can't just say something, a full house or a half full house. It's got to be something which is a specific number. The claim is for a specific number, either a weight or a measure or a count, a number. And the Yodelo B'Davar Mishkan, he's got to be motive to something like that. I say 10, you say 5. I say 100, you say 50, whatever it was. Tanik was the Rava. If a man says, I gave you a kur is like 30 saw, it's a large amount, a specific amount. I gave you, the guy says, no, you gave me nothing. I don't have anything of yours, potter. Why? Because that is kofar akol. Kofar akol, you're not chayiv at all. Minat Torah, you're only chayiv shvuas hesses rabbanim. You're not chayiv at all. Menorah gedola yesh li biyadcha. You have a large candlestick of mine that I lent you. And he answered him, no, I've only have a small, you gave me a small candlestick. That's not motive of mixus. There's a big candlestick and a small candlestick. They're not the same thing. The small one is not part of the big one. Also your putter, because he's denying the whole claim. Azur gdol yesh l'b'atcha. I gave you a large belt or a girdle. I gave you a large one. Ein l'chbiyari alizar kind of small one. Again, your putter, because that's kofar akol. Let's say he said kur tfor yesh l'b'atcha. I gave you a kur of produce. The other guy says ein l'chabiyari elo lesach. No, you got half. Lesach is 15 saw, half a kur. So there he said specifically, I gave you a whole kur, and you said no, you only gave me a half. Then he's motiv b'miktsas chayiv. Either he said I paid you back half, or he said you only gave me half. He's motiv b'miktsas. Right? You're chayiv a shvur daraisa. Menorah bas eser litron. Let's say he said this. Let's say I gave you a large candlestick that weighs 10 kilo. No, you only gave me a small one which is 5 kilo. You're chayiv. Now, this is a little bit strange, right? Because here we're also talking about a large menorah and a small menorah. Why isn't that kofar akol? Isn't he denying the whole thing? The Gemara is going to bring that up. We're going to deal with that. But at this point, we're saying if it's a measure, like a 30 a kur I gave you, and you gave me back a lesach 15, you're chayiv. It's moda mixus. I gave you a menorah that weighs 10 kilo, and the guy's moda to one that weighs 5 kilo. That's moda mixus. Klalo shodavar. What's the general principle? Right? It's got to be something where the claim and the counterclaim are both something which either can be measured, weighed, or counted. It's got to be, the claim has to be davar shebemida shebishkol v'shebmillion, and the counterclaim, what he's moted to, the partial that he's moted to, is also davar shebemida v'shebishkol v'shebmillion. Klal shedavar lo seimai. What does he have to repeat that klal? Obviously, he gave examples. He said, when you're kofar akol, you don't know anything. You're putter. When you're moted b'miktsas, of a taina, then you have to make a shvur. You have to make a shvur d'oraisa. So what does the klal shedavar come to include? Says the Gemara. Klal shedavar lasuye mai. What does that come to include? Lav lasuye bayiseh. Coming to include this case of bayiseh mole. Even in other words, it doesn't make any difference if I said a house. I gave you a warehouse, a full warehouse of produce, or I said this warehouse full of produce. It doesn't make any difference. Neither one of those are specific. So the Gemara now says, why did we say that? What? When he said, I claim I gave you a large candlestick, and you say, I only gave you a small one, therefore you're potter, because what I claimed, you didn't make a counterclaim. You were not moted to mix us. You did not admit to that you owe me part of it. So Maishna menorah gedola menorah ketana mashatona lo hodolo mashahodolo lo tono. What I claimed you didn't admit to, and what you admitted to I didn't claim. Yochi, what's the difference between that and a menorah that's 10 kilos versus 5 kilos? Yochi bas eser bas chamesh nami mashatona lo hodolo mashahodolo lo tono. What's the difference? I said I gave you a large candlestick and you're motive to a small one, so that's not motive of mixus. You're kofar akol. So how is that different than I gave you a candlestick that weighs 10 kilo? And you admit to one that weighs 5 kilo. It's also not the same thing. It's not what I claimed you didn't counterclaim, and what you counterclaimed I didn't claim. I'll tell you why. Because in the case of the menorah, we're speaking about a menorah that's made out of pieces, out of different pieces. It's got different parts to it, right? It's one that's assembled. The komodo lebida, he's motive. In other words, I ask you for a large candlestick that has many parts to it, and you're motive to the same candlestick that only has some parts to it. It's the same one. If that's what you want to say, if that's what you want to claim about the menorah, why don't you talk about a girdle that way too? A girdle. Nisne v'luk me'b'delifi. You could also talk about a girdle that's made out of several pieces of material that are sewn together. And you could say also by the girdle, we said if I claim a big girdle and you claim a counterclaim that I only gave you a small one, we say that's kofar akol, that's not a mixus. Why? Talk about a girdle that's also made out of pieces. They probably have girdles that you can add together with Velcro or whatever, and it should also be motive that makes us your motive to part of it. Ela b'delifi lo ktani. The answer is we're not talking about one that has to be sewn together that's made out of parts. We're not talking about that. So you can't give an answer and say, well, in the case of the candlestick where it's motive mixas, it's because it's made out of parts. So let's say the candlestick has 5 parts to it, and you're motive to 3 parts. Right? So you're motive mixas. But that's unlikely, because otherwise we should say the same argument when it comes to the girdle. Elam Ravabar Bar Mamel, shiny menorah. In case of menorah, it's different. It's different in the case of the menorah that we specified, a menorah that's made out of 10 kilo versus one that's made out of 5 kilo, because you could scrape it down. The 10 kilo one can be scraped down into 5. In other words, you can't take a big girdle and make it into a small girdle without ruining it totally. And you can't take a large menorah that is not made out of, let's say a large menorah and a small menorah could have the same weight. You can't necessarily chop it down or scrape it down. But here we're talking about a menorah that I say specific, a menorah of 10 kilo. I mean one that I could scrape off and turn into 5 kilo. And that's why it's motive mixus in this particular case. Now we're going to get into the last mission in the parak that's going to talk about a mashkon. Now let's understand something. If I give you $100 loan and I demand from you a mashkon, I want collateral. So you give me, let's say a menorah. You give me a menorah as a mashkon. Now, what is the status of that mashkon in my possession? We're going to see today, but also tomorrow's daf. The mashkon could be something that I own temporarily, right? I own that. I own it right now. But that's usually in a case where you own it. We'll see where you didn't. I gave you a loan of $100 and you didn't pay me back. I went to court, and the court went and into your house and they took a candelabra, a menorah, as a mashkan for me. In that case, the pasuk says, "L'chati it's stucca." If I give it back to you, it's stucca. Why? Because I owned it. So effectively, I own it. But do I really own it? In general, the status is we're going to assume now. Let's say let's say at the time I gave you the $100, you gave me the menorah to guard, and then the menorah got stolen from my house, or got robbed, right? Or an act of God happened. There was a fire, and the thing got burned up and lost. What's the status there? So what is my status? You could say that I own the menorah temporarily, but that's really in a case only, as we'll see, when Bezdin took it away. But if I gave you a $100 loan at the time, I said I want collateral, and you gave me the menorah, what is the status of menorah in my possession? I have this menorah guarantees me that you're going to pay me back. If you don't pay me back, I'll keep the menorah, right? But what is the status? What is my status? Am I a shomer, a shomer chinam? We'll see that maybe I'm just a shomer chinam. And if it was lost or stolen, I'm not responsible. If it was something beyond my control and ones, like a fire, or they robbed it from me at gunpoint, then I'm not responsible. Or, as we'll see, the assumption in the Mishnah is that I'm a shomer sacher. I'm a shomer sacher. I'm like a hired hand. Because in return for giving you the loan, I'm out the money, right, so to speak, in return for, or because I'm doing the mitzvah, I'm lending you money, so I'm doing a mitzvah, I'm being paid for that mitzvah, so I'm like a shomer sacher. What is a shomer sacher responsible for? He's obviously responsible for pshia, for negligence, just like a shomer chinam. But a shomer sacher is responsible for more. He's also responsible for genev and aveda, lost or stolen or lost. So now I have your menorah, and I lost the menorah. I'm responsible for the menorah, right? Right? I'm responsible because it was lost or stolen. It wasn't taken away from me at gunpoint. It wasn't an onus, something beyond my control. I wasn't that careful and I left it out and a burglar took it or I lost it. Let's assume I lost it. I'm responsible. Okay, now, so I'm responsible for the menorah. Let's say the menorah is exactly worth $100. So what would we say then? Right? I lent you $100. You gave me the menorah as collateral, and I lost the menorah. I'm responsible. I'm a shomer sacher. That's what we're assuming now. I'm a shomer sacher. So I lost it. That's it. The loan's canceled, right? I gave you $100. You gave me $100, right? And I lost it. So I can't collect. That's what we assume. Now we're going to get into these details. What happens though if there's a disagreement? We all agree that I gave you $100. There's a disagreement about how much the menorah was worth. That's going to be our issue here. Says the Mishnah, Malbas chaver al mashkan. I gave you money for a mashkan, okay? But a mashkan, I lost it. I'm responsible. Shomer sacher. We're assuming I'm a shomer sacher, right? Amar lo, sell b'sicha. I said, listen, I lent you a sell. A sell is 4 dinars. A shekel is 2 dinars. Sell is 4 dinars. So I said, listen, I gave you 4 dinars. I gave you 4. I gave you 4 dinars. The shekel yeshava, the menorah was only worth 2. I gave you 4. Listen carefully. I gave you 4 shekels as a loan, and you gave me a menorah that was worth 2 shekels, and I lost it. What is my claim to you right now? What is my claim to you right now? You owe me 2 shekels. I know, no, 2 shekels, right? Because I know that I lost it, and I know, and I know it was worth 2 shekels. I lent you 4. I know I'm responsible for 2 shekels. You owe me 2, right? What about lo omer? You say the lova. You say lo ki elasel b'sen love. Yeah, you agree that I lent you 4 shekel, 4 dinars, 4 dinars. I don't know if I said 4 dinars. It's 4 dinars. The sel yeshava. But you claim that the menorah was also worth 4 dinars. So you're claiming that you don't owe me anything. I lent you 4, and the menorah was worth 4. So you're potter to swear. Why? Kofra kol. You're denying the whole thing. You're not motive makes this, right? I say I gave you 4. You say, yeah, I gave you 4, but I lost your 4 dinar menorah. Let's say selvi sichalav shekel yeshava. Again, I get the same claim. I say I lent you 4, and the mashkan was worth 2 shekel, 2 dinars. Keep mixing it up. Let's keep it in dinars. So we're talking apples and apples here. I lent you 4, and the menorah was worth 2. And you owe me 2. The Lova now says, yeah, I did borrow 4. Hilvisani, you lent me 4. I love the Shlosha dinner Mayeshava. But he's moda that it wasn't, he says it wasn't worth 2, like you say, Ephraim, but rather it wasn't worth 4 either, right? I admit that it's not worth 4. It was worth 3 dinars. So now I'm claiming 4 dinars. You owe me 4. And how much am I claiming? 2, right? You owe me 2. And you admit to you owe me 3. Right? Love, right? I say I lent you 4. It was only worth 2. You owe me 2. The Lova says, listen, I lent you. I agree that you lent me 4, but the menorah that you lost was worth 3. Therefore, how much do I owe you? 1, right? 1, because you gave me 4, but I gave you my menorah was worth 3, and you lost it. So only 1. So if I'm claiming 2 and you're claiming 1, what are you? A moda? It makes us, right? You have to make a shvua. Modim makes us. The lova has to swear shvua makes us. So that's all in a case when the malva is claiming more than the lova, right? If the malva says 4, it says what? You owe me 2. Why? Because I lent you 4, and I lost the mashka that was worth 2, so you owe me 2. And the lova says you owe me that he owes me nothing. You owe me nothing. Why? Because he borrowed 4, and the menorah was worth 4. Then he's kofar kol. He's potter from making a shvuas modim makes us. But if I claim 2 and you say you owe me 1, modim makes us. Now the Mishnah gives the reverse. What happens if the lova claims it was worth more than the loan? The loan was 4, and the menorah was worth 8. So now we look at a reverse. The lova is now making a counterclaim. He's the one claiming first. Selvi said, "Love, you lent me $4, 4 dinars. B'shtayim yeshava, right? It was worth 2 sellers. It was worth what? 8 dinars, 2 sellers. In other words, the seller is 4. You lent me 4. I gave you a menorah that was worth double what the loan was. You lost that. How much do you owe me? You owe me 4. You owe me 4, right? I gave you something that was worth 8, and you lost. You owe me 4. The Malvin now says, "Lo ki elasel v'sichalav." I lent you 4. The social, it was worth the same amount. He doesn't have to swear because not moda mixus, he's called for a call. Okay, let's say the Lova says, Selvi, saying like you lent me 4, V'shtayim Yishav again, but it was worth 8, and therefore you owe me 4. 8 take away 4 is 4. V'alomer lo ki ela Selvi sichalav. And what does the Malva say? I lent you 4. V'chamisha danar Yishava. I admit that it was worth 5, right? So therefore, I lent you 4, and I lost it was worth 5. I owe you 1. So here, the Lova is claiming that the Malva owes him 4, and the Malva is claiming he only owes him what? How much does he owe him? 1, because he says I lent you 4, and this was worth 5. So therefore, it was worth 5. I owe you 1. Then he has to make a shvuas moda. So in the first case, where the Malva is claiming more, and if the Lova claims he admits to part of it, he has to make a moda mixas. Here in the last cases, the Lova is saying that the menorah was worth double the loan. So he's claiming 4 because he says the loan was for 4. The menorah was worth 8. You owe me 4. You lost my menorah. The Malva says, I admit that it was worth more than the loan, but it was only worth 1 more dinar. The loan was for 4. I lost your menorah, which was 5, so I owe you 1. Okay, he has to make a shvuas menexes. Uminishba, who swears? Who swears over here? Misha Pekad Netzal. The Gemara is going to say, what does it mean? Misha Pekad. Who makes the shvu over here? Well, it depends which case you're talking about, right? So he says, no, the one who's holding the Pekadin. Who's holding the Pekadin? Who's holding the deposit, the collateral? The Malva. He has to swear. Why? Shema Yishbazeh, because if the Lova swears, think about it. Let's say the Lova swears, how much it was worth, right? How much it was worth? I swear it was worth 8. The Yotzi I lost Bekadin. The other guy he says, well, I said I lost it, but I didn't really lose it. I was just trying to catch you. Here it is, I have it. Now you swore in court on God on a Bible that it was worth 8, and now I have it right here. There's 14 assessors over here, 14 Shamaim, right? The people who assess the value of items, and they all say it's worth 4. You're a liar. You'll never be able to testify again. Says Rashi, the last Rashi on the page. If the Lova, in other words, we say the Malva swears, because if the Lova swears and the Malva pulls it out, then the Lova will be a known liar. Shemelo diktik v'zebashuma. The Yifslenis says Rashi, la'edus l'shvur. He's never going to be a kosher aid again because he swore falsely. We'll see what this means exactly. In all cases, does the Malva swear? The Malva, in the latter cases, the Malva is the moda b'mikzas. Of course, he has to swear. So what do you mean? Minish b'misha b'ganetzlo. Because if the Lova swears what it's worth, and then the Malva pulls it out of his hat, he says, "I really had it. I was just kidding that I lost it," and he made this guy swear falsely, that guy's going to be a known liar. So we'll see. What does that mean? Says the Gemara in Amid Beis on the top of the page. Ahaya. What do you mean this last case? Mi nishba. Who swears? Misha b'kadanetz, the Malva swears. Ahaya. Ilay Masef. It's going on the Sefer where who was? In the Sefer, the latter part of the Mishnah was speaking about where the Lova made the claim, right? The Lova said, I gave you menorah was worth double. Ilay Masefa. So, and what? We say where the Lova asked for more, and the Malva is the motive of mixas, but typically the Shvur Gabe Malva. Anyway, the Malva saying, why do you have to say who swears? The one who's holding the Pakad, meaning the Malva. The Malva had to swear anyway if you're talking about the Sefer. Amr Shmuel, no, Aresha, it's talking about the first cases where the Malva claimed more. He was making a claim to the Lova. He said, I lent you 4, and the Pakadin was only where the menorah was only worth 2. You owe me 2, and the guy's motive to 1. Amr Shmuel, Aresha, B'chenim Rav Chia Barav Ashi, Barav, Aresha, it's gone the Resha, B'chenim Rav Yochanan Resha. My Resha, what do you mean the Resha? The very beginning case was where the Lova denied the whole thing. The Malva said, you owe me, I gave you 4, the menorah was only worth 2, you owe me 2. The Lova said, no. The menorah was worth the same 4 that you lent me. I owe you nothing. Can't be that case. It says say for the ratio. It doesn't mean that case. It means say for the ratio. What was that case? Selva Yisichalav, I lent you 4. Bashekel Yishav was worth 2, and you owe me 2. Therefore, Valom Merloki Ela Selvi Sanof, you lent me 4. Alav Vishloshim Yishav, it was worth 3. So therefore, I only owe you 1. Chayiv the Shvur Gabilovu. You're chayiv because the Shvur really who's supposed to swear? The Lova. But the rabbi said, you know what? Don't let the Lova swear, even in that case where we said what? That the Lova should swear because he's motive and mixes. I'm claiming 4. I'm claiming 2 rather. Right? I said it was worth 4. Rather, I lent you 4. It was worth 2. So therefore you owe me 2. I lost your 2 shekel, your 2 dinar menorah. So therefore you owe me 2. And the guy said, I only owe you 1. That's motive and mixes. So really the Lova should make the shvua that what? You know what it's worth. The shaklura banami Lova. and the Rabbanan took the shvur that the lova had to make. The Rabbanan said the malva should make it. If the shvur deraisa says the lova should make the shvur, the rabbis came along and said no, let the malva make the shvur. Why? Because if the lova swears that what? That he only owes you one. He only owes you one. Why? Because the menorah was worth three dinners, right? And then the guy pulls it out of his hat and he says, no, look at right here. You see it's worth 4. And everybody says it's worth 4, and he's a known liar. Therefore, the rabbi said that the malva should make it. That's what the Gemara assumes right now. But the Gemara changes it. Bahashta, Dom Ravashi. Now the Ravashi says he sells this elsewhere in Bamitzia. The Kaimelon, what? Zednish b'shena b'shusa v'zednish b'kama shava. They both have to make a shvua. In other words, yes, the lova swears what it was worth, right? What does that mean? What does it mean when he swears what it was worth? The lova, the malva's asking, says, you owe me 2, right? That's what it comes down. The net effect is the malva says, you owe me 2 dinners. And the lova says, I owe you 1. Now, what does he swear? He swears how much the menorah was worth to prove that he only owes 1. How does he prove? What does he swear? I swear only 1. Based on what? He swears what it was worth. So therefore, Rav Ashi says, no, they both make a shvua here. The lova, yes, makes a shvua how much it was worth to show that he motive mixus and he denies the other part, right? But the malva also has to swear that he lost it, that he doesn't have it. Why? Because we're afraid that the malva said, you know what? I like this because I like this menorah. In fact, I need a new menorah for Hanukkah. My other one got lost, and I'd like to keep this menorah. So I say, I lost your menorah. I'm willing to eat it. In other words, I'm willing to pay for it. That's what he's really saying in his mind. I gave you 4 dinars. You say, and I claim that it was worth 2, so you owe me 2, right? Because I want to keep the menorah. So the rabbi said, yeah, we want to make sure you're not keeping the menorah. You first have to swear that you lost it, that you don't have it in your rishus. So that's what Rashi said. The kaimlan zen nishba shena b'shuso. The malva swears that he doesn't have it. He really lost it. The zen nishba, and then the lova swears how much it was worth because he's motive makes us. Hachikamas. This is what the Mishnah means. Mi nishba tchila. See, the Mishnah just said mi nishba. Who swears? So we say, okay, the malva swears. Why should the malva swear? In the last case, the malva swears anyway. He's the motive makes us. No, the lova swears. We first said the lova swears, but he really should swear. But we put the shvur on the malva because we're afraid the lova will swear what it was worth, and then the malva will pick it out of will pick it out of his hat to show that the guy's a liar, and then he'll passel him or hate us. No, we don't want to do that. Rather, it means who swears first. They both have to swear. The lova has to swear his motive makes us. I only owe you 1 because it was worth 3, right? You gave me a loan of 4. I gave you the menorah was worth 3. I swear the menorah was worth 3, and therefore I only owe you 1. That's what the lova swears. He's motive b'mixas. He has to make that shvua that he doesn't owe him more than that because the menorah was only worth 3. Again, this is all assuming that the malva has a halacha like a shomer sachin is responsible for kanev and aveda. So Zochagomer, minish who swears first? The lova, the malva. Misha b'kadin etzlo. Met the malva swear first that he doesn't have it, that he lost it. Shemi yishbazeh. Why? Because if the lova swears first that it was only worth that it was worth 3, it was worth 3. The yotzi lost b'kadin. Then the other guy will pull it out and show that it was really worth 4. If it was worth was 4, or that it was worth 2, whatever he says, right? The malva says, I gave you a loan of 4, and I say it was only worth 2, so you owe me 2. 4 minus 2 is 2. So we don't want the lova to swear that it was worth 3, and then the malva pulls it out and shows that it was really worth 2. So that's what happens over here. The one who was motive mixus, he has to swear. But first, the malva must swear. The rabbi said the malva must swear that he doesn't have it because we're afraid of a shtick. We're afraid that he took it for himself. And he says, yeah, I lost it. I'll pay for it. Right? That can happen sometimes, right? That you give somebody a mashkin, and they'll say, yeah, I lost it because he wants to keep it. I'll pay for it. But, the guy wants his menorah back. Okay. So that's what the Mishnah said. Amar Shmuel. Now Shmuel is going to say something which goes against our Mishnah. Amar Shmuel, hi mandos ve'alfa zuze. I lent you $1,000. L'chavre, he lent $1,000. Mashkan le kosta de magla. He gave him a very inexpensive mashkan. The malva gave him $1,000, and the guy gave him a handle of a sickle, a cheap thing. It was worth $1, let's say, right? Avid kosta de magla, avid alfa zuze. You know what? If he said it stam, this is the mashkan, and now he lost the handle, you lost the whole loan. That doesn't sound what our Mishnah said. Like we were just talking about your Shama Sacha for its value, right? You got to deduct its value. Okay, and the shal in the Mishnah is, what was the value? What was the value? But everybody agrees if the value was known and there was no discussion about that, okay, you just deduct whatever it was worth. If I gave you a loan of $4 and you gave me something that was worth $2 and everybody agrees it was $2 and I lost it, you only owe me two. But not that the whole loan is canceled. Shmuel says the whole loan is canceled. Aval tarti kasasi lo, right? So then the whole loan is. Let's say I gave you two, the mashkin was two handles and he lost one of them. Then he says, you know what? You don't say that you deduct half the loan, you deduct $500 for each handle because you still have the other handle. So that one, okay, I'll cover the cost of the handle, but the loan is still outstanding because he still has one handle. As long as I have a handle as one of the mashkins, I can collect the loan. Give me back the money and I'll give you back your handle. Even if there were two handles, it goes against the money itself. In other words, you gave me two handles against $1,000 loan. If you lost one hand, you lost $500. You lost the other one of it Kulei. In other words, the understanding of the mashkin is that it's for the loan. If I lost the mashkin, I can't collect the loan. The guarantee I have for the loan is the mashkin. If I lost the mashkin, I can't collect. Avokosav and Nascha, here even Rav Nachman says, let's say I took as a mashkan a handle of a sickle, a cheap thing, and a bar of silver. Then you don't say that. You don't say that each one is against that. Rashi says, because the man's mind is on the expense of silver, obviously, right? That's in the low parsh chad b'palga b'chad b'chad. He didn't say it. Didn't they as a payment? In other words, you don't say that. He accepted both of them mashkano v'lo paron. He gives him back. He doesn't have to pay for the value. Rav Nachman Amar, right? So that's what he said. No, but in other words, Rashi was I was repeating the first sheet of Shmuel, that if he said two, we don't say each one is for 500, but both candles together are the mashkin. If I lost one, I'll pay you for that, but it's not. But Nachman says even two handles, even though he didn't say beferish, each handle is worth 500, but if he lost one of them, he lost the 500. That's Rav Nachman's shita. Avakosov and Nascha, Rashi goes on near the bottom of the page. Lower mean and Nascha kibel b'palga. The kivin the media chazli pron. Since you can pay back with the silver that's worth money, look at elbet meishav. He accepted it for its value. So again, that would be like our Mishnah, that looking at the value of the mashkan. Even if it was a handle back in the Gemara, I feel a kasav and ascha of a nascha of a palga. If you lost the silver, I gave you two things as a mashkan. You gave me two things as a mashkan: a bar of silver and a handle. I lost the bar of silver. I lost half the loan. Of a kasav, I lost the other hand. I lost the other half of the loan. In other words, it goes against the loan. So doesn't this go against our Mishnah? Says the Gemara, now look at our Mishnah. Tanan, our Mishnah said, Salav yisichalav. I lent you 4 dinars. V'shekel yeshava, the first case. And it was worth, the menorah was worth 2, so you owe me 2. Yes, you lent me 4. V'shosha dinar yeshava, but I swear that it was worth 3, and therefore I only owe 1. You have to make a shvua. Why do you make a shvua? What are you saying? Lei malei. Why doesn't he say hakabilte? Why doesn't he say according to Shmuel? Listen, if you lost the mashkin, you've lost your loan. What are you claiming from me 2, and I'm claiming 1? What are you talking about? According to Shmuel, I lost the mashkin. I can't collect it all. So the Gemara says masisin but a parish. Our Mishnah is speaking about where he said specifically. What does that mean? What is specific? Rashi says 2 lines from the bottom page in Rashi. I'm only accepting this mashkin not as full collateral, only for what it's worth, right? So if I gave you 4. And the mashkin is only worth 2, I'll be responsible for 2, but no more than that. Shmuel b'lo parish, very simple. Shmuel speaking about, okay, give me a mashkin. Give me a mashkin, whatever you give me. Give me the mashkin, whatever it is. Okay, that'll be my collateral. If I lose the collateral, I can't collect the loan. The Mishnah speaking about where he said specifically, I'm accepting it only for its value. Okay, so lema ketanoi, l'chor Shmuel's halach over here, which seems very strange. See, you lost the mashkin. I gave you $1,000. You gave me a mashkin worth $1. And I lost the mashkin, I can't collect it all. That's a machlokas here in the following machlokas tanam. The first sheet is Rebbe Lezer. If I lend you money against a collateral, and I lost the mashkin, yishba v'itos mosav. The Rebbe Lezer says, you know what? I should just swear that I lost it and I collect the whole thing. I collect the whole thing. This goes the other way entirely. Mashkin yishba v'itos mosav. The Rebbe Lezer. Rav Akiva Yachol L'Shem could say, listen, Kluma V'Sein El Mashkan, you only lent me money against the Mashkan, of a Mashkan, of a Moscha. Why should you be able to collect? If you lost the Mashkan, you lost your money. Okay, that's what the machlok is here between Rav Lezer and Rav Akiva, simply where it doesn't say what the mashkan is worth. If you lost the mashkan, Rav Lezer says you can still collect the whole thing. I swear I lost the whole thing. We'll see why. How does that work? If I lost the whole thing or not, am I not responsible? We'll see in a minute an explanation of that. So Rav Mashkan, so Rav Lezer says if I lost the mashkan, it doesn't make any difference. I can just swear I lost it and I collect the whole thing. Rav Akiva says no. You go against whatever was worth. If the mashkan was lost, right? If the mashkan was lost. If you lost the mashkin, you lost the whole thing. That l'chor goes like Shmuel. Let's say I had a star. I lent you $1,000 with an IOU, so you can collect based on the star. What did you need the mashkin for? And then he put a mashkin as well. Everybody says there, why? Because I didn't need the mashkin to collect the loan. I had a star, I had an IOU. Why did I add the mashkin onto that? I took it that as against the loan. If I lost the mashkin, then I lost my money. Everybody agrees there. What's this case? If we're saying that the mashkin is worth the exact amount of the loan, my time to Rav Lezer. Why does Rav Lezer say that, you know what? I gave you $1,000 loan. You gave me a mashkin of $1,000. If I lost the mashkin, I should be able to collect the whole thing? That's Rav Lezer says. I just have to swear that I lost it. Didn't we say you're a shomer sacher? And you have to, if you lost it, you're responsible for loss of stones. So if I lost it, how can I collect the whole thing? El lalav, it can't be. But alo shavi shir zuzit. We're speaking about where the mashkin is not worth the same amount as the loan. It's worth much less. Uber shmuel kamifli. And that's the machlokas over here right now. What's the machlokas? Rabbi Lezer Savar, let's see Rashi over here. Rabbi Lezer on the top line of the page. Rabbi Lezer, less later Shmuel. He doesn't know the Shmuel. The mashkin she'ena shava kol achov. Ein adam makabel zachan dvarim. If the mashkin is not worth the whole loan, it's not against the whole, like Shmuel says, if you lost it, you lost that. L'zichron dvarim, he says that the mashkin is only like a star. It's like a, how do you say in English, a zichron dvarim? A memorandum. It's like a memorandum of, of intention, just to show that, that I gave you the loan. Hilkuch shamarchinam hu. Rabbi Lezer says I'm a shamarchinam. It's just meant as a just to remember that this was a loan. Like I don't want you to forget it. So he wrote it down. The mashkin is simply like just to remember. Okay, give me something. Give me your handkerchief. Here's $1,000. Give me your handkerchief so we'll remember the loan. What am I on that? I'm only a shamachinam, says Rabbi Lezer. A shamachinam is not responsible for Geneva and Aved. He's only responsible for Pshia. So he swears, he swears that he wasn't negligent. V'shena b'shusa, and then I don't have it anymore. I just lost it. V'yitlak, I can collect the whole thing. That's Rabbi Lezer's shita. For Rabbi Akiva, k'shmuel. Rabbi Akiva was like Shmuel, spherulei. What? Shalashem mashkin kibla. I accepted it against the value, right? Aval viu elef zuz. But if I lent you $1,000 b'shtar, even Rabbi Lezer's moda shemashkin shkibel v'achakain l'shem mashkin kibla, accepted it as against the loan. I already have a zichron dvarim. I have the star. So if I lent you, I can collect it. I can collect it. We shouldn't forget that I lent you the money. I have a star. I have an IOU. So there's a star. Why did I take the mashkin? That's against the loan. That I can hold that against the loan if you don't pay me. And if I lose the mashkin, you don't have to pay me, right? I kept the mashkin, said if you don't pay me, I have your mashkin. But if I lost the mashkin, then the loan is canceled for that too. So that's the machlokas over here. And that's the machlokas here. The Shmuel says, right? Rabbi Lezer says, listen, you know what? B'chlal, if there's nothing written down, the mashkin is simply, I'm a shamachinam. It's simply a zichron dvarim. It's simply just to know that there's an IOU over here. Right? It's just like a zichron dvarim. You didn't really write it down. You didn't have an IOU, but it's like just to remember that it wasn't lost. So but if I lose it, I'm not responsible for it if I was not negligent, and therefore I can still collect the whole thing. Whereas Rabbi Akiva says, no, I could say lent it against mashkin. If mashkin's lost, mashkin's lost, you lost your money. That's like Shmuel Shita. Everybody agrees, though, that if it was a written IOU for the whole thing, everybody agrees that if I lost the mashkin, I can't collect it all, because then it was definitely against that. That's what the Gemara says at this point. Tomorrow, the Gemara is going to say no. But everybody doesn't hold the Shmuel. Most Rishonim say, because of that, Shmuel's shita is pretty strange. Shmuel says, if you lost the mashkin, you can't collect it all. Okay. Most people don't hold the Shmuel. Some say the halach is like Shmuel, the Ramah, others, but most Rishonim say the halach is not like Shmuel, because the Gemara says, Kul am lesser Shmuel. What's the machlokas here? But a shavush year zuze, when it was really worth that amount. But the question is, what's the status? What's my status? So Gemara says, goes to Rav Yitzchak. Rav Yitzchak says, "Menayin lebachov shekana mashkan." How do the bachov owns the mashkan? Shem machoti et staka. Emena kana mashkan and staka menayin. I give it back to you. It's stuck. If I give you back your mashkan, why is it stuck? Stuck is only if I'm giving you something. If I don't own it, why is it stuck? It's not stuck on my part. And mekan lebachov shekana mashkan. You see the bachov's kana mashkan. The Gemara says, okay, so if that's the case, Rav Yitzchak, what Rav Yitzchak is saying is really a machlokas Torah, because Rabbi Lezer says that I don't own it. It's simply a zichron dvarim. And if I lost it and I'm not responsible, I'm a shamachinam, I don't have to pay. And Rabbi Kiva says, yes, you're going to say Rabbi Yitzchak went like a machlokas Tanam, Rabbi Yitzchak came later than them. So the Gemara goes on to say that Rabbi Yitzchak is really only talking about where, like I said, mentioned before, if Bezin took away the mashkin from you after you couldn't pay back the loan, that's when you really own it. Otherwise, not. The Gemara goes on to explain the machlokas over here is what are you? Are you a shamachinam or are you a shamasachar? And that's the machlokas over here. But what's the halach? Do we go like Shmuel? Not most Rishonim don't go like Shmuel. And if you lost the mashkan, you don't necessarily means that you lost the ability to collect. Tomorrow's Gemara here will be on the podcast from this point, from the second line on Mem Dalid, and this will take us on Shabbos. It's really a pretty short daf. And on Sunday, Mitzvah Hashem, we will pick it up from the 14th line on Mem Hey. Mem Hey on Sunday's daf. Again, Shabbos' daf Mem Dal will be on the podcast. On Sunday, we'll pick it up from Amr Lechanbani, the 14th line on daf Mem Hey Amar Aleph, and we'll see what the Horaot are. Hopefully, we'll have wiped out all of Iran and their leadership by after Shabbos, and we'll be able to be back in shul on Sunday morning. Stay tuned. We will update. Shabbat Shalom, a peaceful Shabbos. May we have no sirens, and may we all be safe. Kol Tov, Shabbat Shalom. Sarot Tovot.
Oh yeah.